quality. It's always been a big thing, but it's going to be even more of a differentiator as we move into this time where anyone can write like an okay article for the most part, or scale their content with okay articles for the most part. So I don't think we should ever get to a point where we're blindly trusting AI to create content for us, but I think it can help get maybe the first iterations or maybe a rough outline out, and then it's up to the humans to really add those differentiating factors of experience, of real data, of expertise into the content.
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Casiotis, and today I'm very happy and excited to be joined by Bianca Anderson. Bianca works as an SEO strategist at Hubspot, a company we all know, where she helps spearhead the SEO strategy for the core blog properties. With a background in nonprofit and agency work, Bianca brings a diverse range of skills and experience to her role. I'm happy to finally have someone from HubSpot because it's a company that we all know when it comes to marketing, content marketing, SEO. Bianca, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that excellent intro.
So I said a few things as part of this intro, but I would like to hear a few more things from you when it comes to your journey and your background and what brought you to HubSpot and like what you do today.
Yeah, so when I look at my SEO journey thus far, I'd say it all started at my first real digital marketing role at the Adler Planetarium here in Chicago. It was a wonderful experience. I got to try on a lot of different digital marketing hats. A lot of the work I did, at least at the start, was centered around email marketing campaigns, both internal communications and external monthly newsletters that we would send out to members and patrons of the planetarium. I think my peak of interest in SEO started when I began writing for the blog there, the Adler Scope. At the time, it was relatively new, and I had two writing series that were monthly. That I wrote for. One was Chicago's Black Women in STEAM, which involved me interviewing local women in Chicago who were doing really exciting endeavors in science, technology, etc. And then I had another series called Astrofan, which is where I talked about some of my favorite astronomical phenomenon. I'm a huge space fan, by the way, so this was all a lot of fun. And from those writing escapades or whatnot, I started to naturally get pushed into SEO, wanting to do keyword research, wanting to do link building. And so that really started to spark my interest. And my manager at the time, Megan Lothamer, she did a really good job in kind of directing me to SEO. And in 2020, there was a massive layoff. So 2/3 of everyone in the planetarium was laid off, and I was part of that. And I remember I had some conversations with my manager at the time, not quite sure where I wanted to go in my career, my digital marketing career. Do I want to continue with email marketing? Do I want to continue pursuing SEO? And she really encouraged me to do SEO because she saw something there. And so I did. And shortly after my time at the Adler, I started working at a full service agency, also based in Chicago, and got to work in a very diverse range of industries. One day I was working with clients who specialized in hip surgery. The next I was working with clients that had AI gun detection as their main product. So I really got a taste of a lot of different approaches to SEO within the agency world. within the startup space, within the small to medium-sized business space as well. And so that was a really nice journey as well. And while I was at the agency, I got approached by our current director of global growth here at HubSpot, Asia Frost, on LinkedIn. She messaged me. The tagline or subject line was, "Hey, do you want to work at HubSpot?" And I was like, "Yes, I want to work at HubSpot. This is awesome." And so I've been here for a little over a year and a half now. It's been a wonderful journey. I'm currently the project manager for a core deliverable for the Blog Ian SEO program, and that is called the Blog Insights Report. It's a monthly deliverable where we provide an extensive list of briefs for the blog team to then take on for their writing. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and I think that sums up how I got here.
It sure does. We will discuss more about HubSpot and your role there. But I would like to ask a question to your then manager, if she still sees a future in SEO, with all the changes that happen right now. It's pretty challenging, right? I don't know. What do you think? Is there a future in SEO?
Absolutely. And I myself have had those moments where, it's late at night and I'm wondering, is my career choice a safe one? Like, is there a future with it? And I think what helps kind of ground me is just researching or Googling articles that were written in the past, like 10 years or so ago, claiming or proclaiming that SEO was dead and seeing how wrong those were. No, I absolutely think that there is a future in SEO. I think there's a future career in SEO if people are interested in joining it, if they haven't already. People love content. People love navigating websites and getting the information that they need. And I think as long as that's the case, which I think is going to be for a very long time, SEO will remain relevant in some capacity. Now it's going to look a lot different probably, but it will be here for sure.
Yeah, and we will discuss about this changes. But going back to where you're at right now, a question we ask all guests is to share a couple of things about the company they're working at. I mean, I guess we all know HubSpot. Also, disclaimer: we are a HubSpot customer, so we use HubSpot for our CRM as our CRM tool. But for people who are not aware of HubSpot, can you please share a couple of things about HubSpot, what the tool does, who is a typical customer, and so on?
Yeah, so HubSpot is a CRM software. We have a lot of different hubs or a lot of different niches that we cater to. We have a marketing hub, which I believe is the OG or original hub. We also have a service hub, a sales hub, and a CMS hub. So I think the great thing about these hubs is they can work as a standalone integration. But I think the beauty of the product and the ease of use of the product really comes into play when you start working with 2 or more hubs. And I think that's one of the biggest drawing factors to our clientele. We predominantly cater to small, medium-sized businesses, people who are in marketing or in the niches that we target, and that are a part of these smaller, medium-sized businesses. Typically, they wear a lot of hats. And so the thought of integrating a CRM into their pre-existing processes can seem really daunting. But with HubSpot, the barrier to entry is really low for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's just it's a very intuitive software to use. It does not take a lot to really start to glean how to maneuver it. And then secondly, there's a lot of freemium offers. You can kind of test the waters. We relatively recently launched CMS free. So potential customers can start using our CMS with little cost of their own. So I think that's really an appeal to who we target, which is those SMBs.
Now, HubSpot is an example we all have in our minds because as I see it, it is a company that wrote the inbound marketing, quote unquote, playbook, which was used by the company and I assume served the company well for many years.
Yeah.
Do you think that the same playbook can work in 2023 for companies starting with inbound marketing or companies that have an already established program and want to expand that program?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Even before I joined HubSpot, I was very much an inbound marketing, what is the word? Cheerleader. Like I very much believed in that type of methodology of approaching marketing. And I think that what makes it such a strong playbook, what makes it so relevant, is that it's truly, the practices that are proposed in it are evergreen. So, I think companies are always going to want to build strong relationships with their customer base. I think they're always going to want to, quote unquote, engage and delight their customer base with their content by creating really novel and valuable experiences. I think that all of that will still stand for many years to come. I think it may look like how it's actually executed might look differently. So, for example, with inbound marketing, there's a huge emphasis on content and experience. And in the past, those types of things have been, gated assets or gated templates, gated things that can draw users in and to gain leads. I think that as we move into this AI age, I guess we're already in it, but we're still in the infancy of it in a way, a lot of ways. So I think as we move into that, those assets are going to change. The value that users perceive of those assets is going to change. I mean, with ChatGPT as it is, you can ask it to write you out a memo or an outline, and so that type of content or type of experience might take the place of a traditional asset. But that said, I think inbound marketing is here to stay. And if I were someone, a part of an organization that was looking to incorporate it into pre-existing processes, I think I would just look at it as scaffolding to build things around, to kind of ground your strategy, so that at the end of the day, you can always ask yourself, are we kind of drawing towards this goal of creating engaging experiences and content and ultimately building long-lasting relationships with our customers? But yes, inbound marketing, here to stay. And I'm not just saying that because I work at HubSpot. So.
One of your primary responsibilities is to manage HubSpot's English blog SEO strategy. And I would like to know what are the main pillars of this strategy or main areas of focus for you. Is it to maintain what you have? Is it to expand and get visibility for more terms?
Yeah, so I think, I hope this doesn't sound too nebulous, but if I had to pinpoint this to a few pillars, I'd say one, with the work that we do and the strategies that we implement, I think we want them always to be agile and proactive. I think a prime example of that is with the blog insights report that I mentioned earlier. This used to be something that was done on a quarterly basis. So we would work on it over the course of 3 months, and then it would be released to the blog team as a handoff at the end of the quarter. We switched over to a monthly cadence about a year ago, and one of the main driving reasons for that is we really wanted to have the briefs be as timely as possible. So drawing in on new emerging products, new emerging trends in the topics that we touch on. So I think that agility is really important, especially, I think the SERPs have just seen a lot of volatility, especially, they're always volatile, but in the last year in particular, personally, it's the most volatile I've seen them. And so keeping an agile angle to your strategy or to our strategy is really important to us. And you touched on it, but I think preservation is really key as well. The HubSpot blog has been around for a very long time. We have an extensive catalog of articles. And when you look at the natural life cycle of a blog, you typically have this uptick, this really nice exponential uptick of keywords that you're targeting and ranking for, and the subsequent traffic that comes with that. But naturally, there comes a time where you have started to exhaust a lot of the avenues that you were exploring. And so the goal kind of starts to shift between simply just targeting new content and from that to preserving the content that you have. And so I think preservation is a very important aspect of the strategies and the tactics that we implement on a day-to-day, month-to-month cadence. And then lastly, something that we're moving into right now, so it's very new, is a centering on alignment between Google search systems and what it is we do, particularly with EEAT. I think that if you start to organize your strategy around these types of systems, naturally you can become more of a powerhouse in the topics that you talk about. You can establish more of a presence of a level of trust between your company or your blog and your readers. And so I think those are the core types of things that we really center everything we do and everything we propose around.
I would like to expand on all three, but I will start with the last one and ask, what actions are you taking to kind of prepare for the change that's coming? And I mean, on a very practical level, if you could share any like tips or things or even frameworks on how like people should think about these changes.
Yeah. So I think so we recently I just sent out memos regarding our playbook for approaching EEAT and a post SGE landscape. And what really helped me when I was working with my colleagues to kind of ideate on how to go about this was first going to the source. So going to Google Search Central and seeing the exact language that they use or that they recommend that content creators use when checking their sites for against EEAT best practices. So I guess in terms of like practical tips, I'd recommend going straight to the source, going to Google Search Central, seeing what it is that they think qualifies as lying under the realm of expertise, lying under the realm of experience. But from there, I think my experience when navigating that is sometimes the recommendations are not super actionable. They can be a little vague. And so I think the next step from there is to make them as actionable as possible. So for example, I think in Google Search Central, one of the questions that they pose is, or that they ask content creators to pose is, does my content sound like it's being written by an enthusiast or an expert? And that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So what we did is we started to branch out actionable items from that. So for example, an internal term I think we're going to start using a lot at HubSpot is something called productive perspectives. So it's really just emphasizing on the importance of having our authors really not shy away from using their voice when they're creating content. And that can look like a lot of different things. One thing is just centering your experience with something throughout the post through and through by speaking in first person, by demoing the product that you're speaking of in a way that's really engaging. I think another thing that will be important is making really strong stances on topics. I think a hallmark of being an expert in something or having an experience of something is the ability to really draw from your experience to make some statements that might even be controversial, not in like a bad way, but like in a thought-provoking way. So that's one of the ways. It's kind of just starting to reorient how we think about content being written and how we place our writers when they're writing content. I think another actionable thing you can do is if you have a team of writers and they are writing on a varied amount of topics, I think it's important to make sure that you start to align their expertise with what they're writing about. So that is a very actionable thing that I think companies can do and that we're hoping to start doing very soon. And also utilizing the internal resources that you have. I mean, working at HubSpot, sometimes I feel a bit spoiled because we do have immense resources. Like we have a whole academy of a team of academy leaders who write these awesome courses that I myself have gotten certifications in prior to working at HubSpot. And with that comes a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of opportunities for interlinking, for references to this content within our own, so more collaboration. In a similar vein, we have a growth team that conducts some firsthand research that I think can be really compelling. And we're working on having an internal data repository for our strategists to use as they're building out these pieces of content, so that this data is accessible to them. It's easy for them to find in relation to what they're talking about. So I think all of these things are very actionable, but I think starting with the source, so going straight to Google, seeing what it is that they consider to fall under the realm of these different categories of EEAT, and then going from there to personalize those things within the context of what your organization is currently capable of doing. I think that's a good start.
It's very interesting that many of the things you shared are things that we also kind of discuss internally and have already started communicating to our clients. Like you mentioned productive perspectives, we call them search perspectives. And you mentioned like sharing your opinion and like being, having an opinion about something. And I mean, I shared a screenshot the other day on LinkedIn, which obviously resonated well with people. And it was a screenshot, by one of Google's articles on how they will approach in the future helpful content helpfulness. I'm sorry. Yeah. And they repeat the same words over and over again, like perspectives, opinions, expertise, experience, first-hand experience, and so on. And you see this and you're like, chances are that the company that, because I think that, getting this article out there, most likely it will, pass through many different people, and most likely legal will also review this. So nothing in this kind of piece of text that you see is random there, right? So if they say something, you definitely have to pay attention, and you don't have to even read between the lines, right? You just have to read the lines and see what is coming. And I think that you really hit the nail on the head, because many of these things that you shared are things that we discuss internally and, believe belong to the future of search, right? And content for a search audience and so on. So I'm very happy about that. Now, back to the second pillar or area of focus, which is maintaining your content inventory. I don't know, I guess you have thousands of blog posts at this point in your English blog. So I guess my question is, do you have any guardrails or processes, in other words, to ensure that, when something starts showing a negative trend, we take action immediately and we are proactive about it?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I mean, as you hit on, our repository of content is incredibly extensive. I mean, 9,000 plus URLs, I believe, if not more. But it's so extensive, in fact, that we have a whole team called Historical Optimization, the Historical Optimizations team, that is dedicated to making sure that our content does not have any degradation in quality, or try to curtail that as much as possible. So that team does a lot of critically important work in maintaining the immense catalog of content that we have. Most recently, they went and did a very extensive audit of 4,000 of our oldest URLs, and they graded them on within the context of freshness to determine, was this content really stale? Was it beyond repair? Is it just better to redirect this content, or is it salvageable? And from there, we're slowly starting to integrate these URLs into our BIR, our Blog Insights report, so that they can be touched on. Because we don't want, what can happen is if you only approach your top performing pieces, or the pieces that are performing at all, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the content is performing all right, and so you're optimizing it and it's performing well, but then the content that's not performing well isn't getting touched on because it's not even hitting the radar of what's going on. So I think that content audit that the HisOps team has done is going to be really crucial in ensuring that we are being proactive about making sure that our content is not growing stale. Additionally, on the SEO front, the blog SEO front, we have a couple of processes where we like to flag what we call dire updates. So these are URLs that we have in the past. So when working with HisOps, for context, so when working with HisOps, we've developed tiering systems that denote how impactful essentially a URL is. And this is based off of different KPIs like traffic, leads, signups. So all of this is taken into account, and there's tier 1 and tier 2 URLs. Now these are the URLs that drive the most traffic, that drive the most leads and signups on average. And then there's the tier 3 and tier 4 URLs. So a lot of what HisOps does is in relation to those tier 1 and tier 2, and a lot of what SEO does is relation to those tier 3 and tier 4. But we do have some processes for flagging dire updates. This was a process that was established long before I came on, and I'm a huge fan of it. And basically, there's just a system of checks to see and it's done week over week and monthly, to see what URLs that are considered tier 1 or tier 2 are underperforming in a way that is that deviates from what we would consider to be a normal seasonal or just normal fluctuations. And then that's flagged for what we call a dire update, and his ops team takes that on. So there's a lot of different ways that we're trying to tackle our inventory. Most recently, another example of this is with the Blog Insights report. Historically we do what we call an update bonanza once a year. Now this update bonanza is just instead of having a Blog Insights report that consists solely of net new posts and updates, it's more focused on updates. And due to some analyses that were done in regards to the most recent March core update, we found a strong correlation between content freshness and negative performance. So we decided to extend that update into more than just a one-off, once-a-year thing. So now we've done 2 consecutive update bonanzas. We're currently working on the second one as we speak. And those are the way that we've decided what content is getting put on that is through Screaming Frog pools of the last touch date of these pieces. And so we're trying to prioritize topic clusters that haven't been touched on average in a longer time to help promote freshness in the blog. So it's a very involved process with many different collaborators. I really give credit a lot of that to the historical optimizations team because the work that they do is just so imperative to us maintaining that catalog. But yeah, it's a very involved thing.
Speaking of optimization, while researching for this episode, we came across a heavy hitter process you have developed for optimizing blog posts. Can you please speak about that process and explain, say a few things about what the process is all about?
Yeah, so the heavy hitter process is an expansion on the work that was done when creating the dire update criteria process. So it takes it to a next level, though, because we found when speaking with our lead and signups teams that there is a small cohort of URLs that contribute a disproportionate amount of leads and signups to the blog. So as I said, there's 9,000 plus blogs on the HubSpot blog, but 30 of our URLs contribute to nearly a quarter of all of our blog's leads, which is insane. And it really hones in on the importance of those cohorts. So we keep an extra close eye on these URLs. So the heavy hitter process is also a weekly and monthly one. The main caveats from this process and the dire update process in which it's inspired from is that it's just a lot more sensitive to changes in traffic, to changes in keyword positions, because we recognize that one of these URLs can, if the performance of one of them goes down, that can have a disproportionate impact on our final numbers. So it's just about creating a more sensitive way to analyze these URLs. We have set up Looker dashboards, Looker Studio dashboards. And sorry, quick segue. I know Google Data Studio recently changed its name to Looker Studio, and it's so hard for me to remember that change. But yes, we use Looker Studio dashboards to create customized or personalized views of these cohorts. We've separated them from heavy hitter signups, so the top 30 heavy hitter for signups that generate the most signups disproportionately, and then the top 30 or so for leads as well. So it's been a really great experience dealing with this process, and I think it's also helped build relationships between the blog SEO team and our conversion team and our signups teams, which has been really exciting.
Speaking of other things you've developed, we saw you've established a process for analyzing Google algorithm updates, and also you mentioned earlier, finding a correlation between the March's, let's say, algorithm update with freshness. And can you please explain what this process is all about and how you can analyze Google algorithm updates and maybe identify them and see what may play a role here in this update? Yes. So for context, this is another example of just building upon pre-existing processes. So my colleague Bianca D'Agostino created an awesome algorithm update process that was is very methodical and measured, and just a great way to just make sure you're checking all of your
dotting all your T, what is it? What is the expression? Crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's when it comes to these things. The one caveat of that is, though, naturally, an algorithm update and analysis is going to be a very time-intensive process that requires a lot of resources. I mean, these things can take anywhere from 2 to 5 days of full work, depending on how severe or how tricky things get. So what I did was I just added another layer to the work that Bianca had already done. So I called this the algo update analysis criteria. So it's a phased approach to kind of measuring the waters or testing out the waters to make sure, one, are we being impacted enough for a full-blown analysis that's going to take all of these resources to happen? And also to try to get like a pulse on what actually is being affected. So the way the algo update analysis criteria works is there's a phase 1, and basically we're just asking 2 questions. 1, has the Google algorithm update finished its rollout? That's a very simplistic one, but it's important. And then the second one that's kind of in relation to that is, has SERP volatility subsided enough for us to start making observations and subsequently action items from those observations? And so we like to use like a third-party tool like Rank Ranger. They have a really nice sample size of domains that they use to suss out how volatile the SERPs are. I think it's like 10,000 plus domains. So that's phase 1. So once those answers are checked yes, okay, then we go into phase 2. And that's when we look at our core KPIs and how they're performing within a pre-algo update context and a post one. And so the main KPIs that we look at, 1, traffic, of course, and then there's a baseline that we measure it against. So the baseline is based off of the average traffic deltas that we noted in the past year or so. So if anything drops below that average delta that we would expect, that's kind of cause for, okay, something's going on. This isn't just normal seasonality or fluctuation. And then step 2 is we measure or look at our most important keyword buckets. So keywords ranking in positions 1 through 3, because we know that these are the ones that are driving the most clicks. And if there's also a baseline that was established by looking at averages, delta averages. If we dip below that baseline, that's another cause for concern. And then the third one is leads. How are our leads performing? Because that's a very core KPI. And so if 2 of the 3 of those checks are made, are met, we then know that we can classify this as being a very strong algo update that has impacted our performance. And we need to move on to the full-blown algorithm update analysis that will take a long time, not a long time, but 2 to 5 days of work. So to really be thorough and make sure that we're checking all of the possibilities. In terms of how we actually go about the algorithm update analysis itself, it can vary based off of what we're hearing industry-wide. Like, do we think that this particular update is affecting page experience? If not, if so, that might inform what we're looking into. And that kind of was the case with this most recent March core update. So what we do is we form like a little sample size of URLs. We look at the underperforming URLs or the URLs that had significant declines post-update. Then we look at the URLs that had positive improvements post-update to have like a point of reference or comparison. And then we just start trying to do the process of elimination, looking at Google search systems and what they consider to be important for ranking. Again, things like page experience that kept popping up when we were doing the analysis in March. And from there, we look for strong correlations among the negative cohort. And what typically helps us make a firm decision is if we see a strong correlation with a negative cohort and a not so strong correlation with the positive one, because it tells us, oh, there's something at play here. And that's how we ultimately started to suss out that page experience was a factor in what we were seeing post-March core update.
I would like to shift gears a bit and discuss Google's SGE, which is an acronym for Search Generative Experience. First of all, have you tried it?
Yeah, so we actually all did a fun internal demo walkthrough a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I thought it was a very enlightening experience. I think one thing I was surprised of was how much it kind of reminded me, at least at first glance, of your traditional featured snippet box that appears for certain queries. that was interesting. The load times were kind of longer. We noted that certain links might have been broken or not directing to the right place. And so I think the takeaway from that session was that this is very much kind of like an MVP, a minimally viable product that Google has kind of set out to the world just to start getting their feet in the race. I think of the whole AI race that's going on between them and Bing and whatnot. So I think as it stands, there's a lot, and I know that they're iterating on it as we speak. There's so many changes that they're going to do for this new form of search. So I think you can kind of look at it as maybe it buying your team time to start being proactive about how you're going to approach this new type of search. Because as it stands, I don't personally see it being much more of a value add than what we currently see on the SERPs. But I know for a fact, it's Google. They are not. This is not the final product of it. And so I anticipate that what we end up seeing as the final project is going to look a lot different than what we're currently seeing now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the beta version, and I think when they get to a point where, when they will release a public version, I hope that it will be, significantly better than what we see right now, which obviously has limitations. But as you mentioned, like, it's an MVP, and it will get better or worse depending on how you see it. I don't know. I guess time will tell. You recently were featured on an article on using AI in your day-to-day tasks as part of your role. Can you talk about the best use cases you've identified so far?
Yeah. So me personally, sorry, I've been using AI more so as like a virtual assistant. It's been a memo-heavy few months in response to all of the news of SGE and whatnot. And so I've been using AI. HubSpot has their own internal chat GPT alternative called HubGPT. It's essentially chat GPT, but with some better security restrictions to prevent the leaking of important data and whatnot. So I've been utilizing HubGPT a lot for building out marketing memos, like really the bare bones of it. There's still a lot of human work that needs to be done, but it helps to organize your thoughts. I've been using it, again, in a virtual assistant style to read Zoom call transcripts and give me my takeaways for a meeting if I wasn't able to take notes. So that's how I've been personally using it, but I have seen secondhand a lot of other use cases. For example, we recently started a massive project for multimedia optimization, another response to the March core update. And a colleague of mine who has no Python experience whatsoever was able to use ChatGPT to create a Python script for mass converting images from into WebP format, which is the desired format that we want for this project. Which I thought her process, she told me it the other day, and I was just so taken aback, like how amazingly simple it seemed. Like she would just ask ChatGPT to produce a certain type of code to do a certain type of thing, would test it out and be like, okay, this is good, but this isn't good, and then a new iteration would pop up. So I thought that was really interesting. In terms of for the Ian Blog SEO program, we are currently in the process of working to automate about 50% of the instruction writing work that we do when we're doing the Blog Insights reports. And that's being spearheaded by my colleague Josh, who has done excellent work in making it the UX very friendly for this piece. And what we anticipate happening with this, we're piloting it this month, but what we anticipate happening is that AI is going to be in the background doing like 50% of these instructions. And so parallel work is going to be going on where AI is doing its thing and we are starting to do our own instructions. And this freed up time is going to allow us to be a little bit more, to give our instructions a little bit more breadth, a little bit more context, and most importantly, a lot more focus on those EAT initiatives that I kind of touched on earlier.
Would you trust it to write content for the blog?
Not blindly. I think the thing with AI is that the barrier to entry for writing okay content has gotten a lot lower. The barrier to entry for scaling content has gotten a lot lower. But with that said, I think quality. It's always been a big thing, but it's going to be even more of a differentiator as we move into this time where anyone can write like an okay article for the most part, or scale their content with okay articles for the most part. So I don't think we should ever get to a point where we're blindly trusting AI to create content for us, but I think it can help get maybe the first iterations or maybe a rough outline out, and then it's up to the humans to really add those differentiating factors of experience, of real data, of expertise into the content. But it's definitely going to help. It's going to be a huge help for sure.
One question we ask to all, almost every guest here at the podcast is regarding the future of SEO for SaaS companies. And we kind of touched on certain things that you believe belong to the future. We touched on EAT and some like changes we anticipate there and how you prepare for these changes, which is great because you're proactive about it. But what do you think the future holds for SaaS SEO?
Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic. I think, well, for sure, I'm optimistic from the standpoint of our target audience and the experience that they're going to have on search. It's going to be such a personalized experience. They're going to find their answers probably quicker than they ever have before. So that's going to be like, I think, end up being an objectively better experience for our target audience, our target searchers. On the end of the SEOs who are creating the content for our target audience and target searchers, I think that, again, honing in on those productive perspectives to really differentiate your content from the inevitable mass of content that's going to be scaled by AI is going to be key. I think, this isn't a new idea or prediction, but I do think that the first three or so, now more than ever, the first three positions are going to be what matters. And I mean, I think we're already to that point in a lot of ways, but I think it's going to be even more visible. I'm hopeful. I think that these changes, especially particularly the ones that we're planning on making at HubSpot, it's only going to make our content better, more reliable, more enjoyable, more engaging. And so for that, I think that is for sure a silver lining of all of this AI SGE waves.
Yeah, because regardless of what happens with search, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? Many of the things that we discussed are positive changes that, if a person reads something and they see that, like, the opinion of another human being, or like a different perspective that they haven't thought of, I mean, this will, sit better or will resonate better than like having a piece of content that's okay. So that was all very insightful. Last question I have for you, Bianca. Where can people find out more and get in touch if they'd like to?
Yeah, I'm starting to become more active on LinkedIn, so I highly recommend checking me out there. Just Bianca Anderson. Search me on LinkedIn and I'm there. I also have a not so active professional Twitter that I'm really I'm not working, but I'm hoping one day I will be more active on, and it's called, I think the handle is Binks Does SEO. For context, here at HubSpot, my nickname is Binks because we have two Biancas in our department. I have never been called Binks before in my life prior to working at HubSpot. So it's been a fun little change of pace. But yes, those are the two places people can reach me.
You shared many things that we haven't heard of before here at the podcast, which, by itself makes for like a great episode. And also it's very good to see that our like ways of approaching things is very much aligned, because as I said, many of the things that you said are things that we discuss internally and started communicating to our clients recently. Thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, You can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.